Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. We're waiting for one final panelist to arrive. Okay, we're just going to get started in about a minute. If you've just joined, we were just giving a final panelist a chance to join, but I think we can go ahead and get started in a second, and she can join as soon as she's available. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Jen Yogi. I'm the managing attorney with the Northwest Justice Project. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar brought to you by the Unemployment Law Project and Northwest Justice Project with special guests from the Lummi and Quinault Nations. I'm going to be monitoring today along with Therese Norton, who's a staff attorney in our Bellingham Regional Office. Today, our panel is going to be discussing issues arising around unemployment benefits for Native Americans and tribal employees, and then taking your questions. I'd like to start by introducing Juliana Repp, one of our presenters today, who's going to offer a First Peoples acknowledgement before we begin our program. Juliana is a member of the Nez Perce tribe. She's a managing attorney for the Spokane office of the Unemployment Law Project. Juliana has practiced law extensively within the area of civil legal aid and in several tribal jurisdictions. She serves on national and local boards furthering Native American interests. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone. As Jen mentioned, I was asked to do a land acknowledgement or people's acknowledgement today. Before I do that, I want to set a backdrop, give a little bit of perspective of the Native people that inhabit or continue to live in the United States. There are currently 574 federally recognized tribes and Alaska Native tribes and villages. There are 29 federally recognized tribes in the state of Washington, with most being on the west side of the state. Here on the eastern side of the state, we have the Spokane tribe, the Kalispel tribe, and the Colville Confederated tribes. Excuse me. In this urban area of Spokane, there are approximately 300 tribes represented by 16,000 or so Native Americans. The land acknowledgement or the people's acknowledgement that I'll read was developed by the U.S. Department of Arts and Culture, revised by BHT in partnership with regional tribes, tribal organizations, and Eastern Washington University.
Are you leaving still? Okay. I'm just going to close this because I'm on a webinar now. Okay. Okay.
I'll go ahead with the acknowledgement. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. So we begin this meeting by my acknowledging in particular that I'm calling in from the ancestral lands of the Spokane tribe of Indians and a multitude of tribes who are connected through shared history of trade, celebration, and resources. We make this acknowledgement to pay respects to those tribal elders, past and present, whose knowledge remains on the land. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that brings us together here today. And please join us in continuing to learn about such truths and actions we can take towards restorative justice. Thank you. We can move to the first slide.
Thank you, Julie. So this is just a roadmap for the webinar today. We're going to start with a presentation by Juliana and also John Turpak at the Unemployment Law Project. They'll be giving us an overview of the basics of unemployment insurance and recent changes in the law. And then we're going to move into our panel discussion, where our panelists will be sharing their perspectives and experiences on common unemployment issues that are arising in their work with Native clients and workers. And then at the end of the presentations, we'll go to your questions. Please put your questions in the chat box as we're going along. We're going to get to as many of those as we can during the Q&A portion of the discussion. And please note that the panelists are going to be providing general information. So if you have a question about your particular case and need legal advice, hang on to that. And we're going to provide our contact information at the end of that, at the end of this for getting help with your individual claim. Next slide. We have 5 speakers today, and I'll be introducing them in a moment. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that we'd like to know a little bit about who's on the call with us today. So if you mind, if you can, please type your name into the chat box or where you're calling from, if you're affiliated with a tribe. And then I will move on to our panelist introductions. We're going to have 5 speakers today. First is John Turpak, who's the Executive Director of the Unemployment Law Project. We also have Juliana Rep, who we just introduced earlier. Brandy Douglas is a Puyallup tribal member and recently joined the Native American unit of NJP as the Employment Benefits Navigator. Prior to working at NJP, she served as both a tribal court clerk and paralegal in her tribal community for numerous years. When navigating the unemployment benefits realm with clients, she places the utmost value on gathering facts so that she can seek solutions and resources, and all the while making sure that the clients know their unique experiences matter. Krista Molly is a member of the Lummi Nation. She is currently serving as the Training and Development Administrator for the Lummi Indian Business Council's General Manager's Office. Krista graduated with a BA in Human Services from Western Washington University and has a master's degree in Human Services from Walden University. And finally, Rod Johnson is a member of the Quinault Nation. He's worked for almost 20 years in the hospitality and gaming industry, including long stints in Reno and Las Vegas. He returned home in 2000, where he moved into tribal government operations, serving as the Tarot Director for the Quinault Nation for 5 years, including 2 years as the chair for the Pacific Northwest Tarot Organization. In 2018, he moved into his current position as a specialist with the Quinault Human Resources. I'm going to turn over to John and Julie now for an overview of unemployment benefits.
Thank you, Jen. I'll go ahead. So I was asked to give a brief background on unemployment insurance and the Unemployment Law Project. We'll start back in 1935, President Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act, which contained plans for unemployment insurance to be signed into law. The act contained language encouraging states to form their own unemployment insurance laws. Unemployment insurance was created to limit difficulties when a person loses his or her job. The unemployment benefits provide funds to individuals who have lost their job through no fault of their own. The program is federally funded and administered by states. It is mostly funded by taxes paid by employers, but in some cases, 3 states in particular collect employee taxes on these benefits. Those are Arkansas, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. In the United States, each of the 50 states has state unemployment insurance, and the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the United States Virgin Islands also have their own unemployment insurance programs. The amount of benefits and policies vary by state as to the amount of unemployment benefits, with each state making its own determination regarding eligibility. For purposes of my limited presentation, I'll be focusing mostly on Washington state benefits. The Unemployment Law Project was formed in 1984. The main office is in Seattle, Washington. The Spokane office where I work was opened in 2005. The ULP provides low-cost representation and free advice to people with, or free advice and counsel to people in Washington state who've been denied unemployment benefits or whose award of benefits has been challenged. We represent the clients. Either office represents clients throughout the state in telephonic hearings. We also may file petitions for review and may represent individuals in other appeal venues such as Superior Court or Washington State Court of Appeals. In 2019, ULP represented claimants in more than 750 hearings. Thank you, changing that slide. For a basic overview of eligible or how to apply for regular unemployment benefits, generally you have to have a minimum of 680 hours in your base year. Your benefits will be paid for 26 weeks per the benefit year. And we also have phone numbers to apply online and the website to apply online. If you have questions regarding your claims, we've left the phone number there also. Next slide, please. There are 3 basic scenarios to collect unemployment benefits. The first one is a layoff, and generally that occurs where an employer just doesn't have the work available for an employee and they'll lay off the employee. These are non-issues generally as far as collecting unemployment. The next 2 are a little more difficult. Voluntary quit. Generally in Washington, it's difficult to get unemployment benefits if you quit your job, but within Title 50, there are, I think, 11 scenarios where you can, if you can show good cause to quit, you may be eligible for unemployment benefits. The last scenario here is termination or discharge from employment. In these cases, the employer has the burden of proof generally to show that the employee committed misconduct, and so the employer again will have the burden of proof there. Let me back up. Under voluntary quit, an employee will generally have the burden of proof to show that they had good cause reason to quit. The ULP represents claimants in all 3 of these scenarios. Next slide, please. Okay, so outside of the regular unemployment benefits, which I discussed generally, we've also had federal changes in unemployment insurance policy. First of these is, of course, PUA, which added eligibility for gig workers, independent contractors, part-time employees with less than 680 hours, the base hours that are generally required for unemployment benefits. PUA and PEUC next. PEUC, which extended 13 weeks of benefits. These are both expiring in December of 2020. We'll possibly also be losing full federal funding for extended benefits and shared work benefits, federal funding for waiting week charges. And so we won't really know until Congress reconvenes if the $600 that was paid through these benefits will be extended. I think Congress reconvenes on November 9th, so we won't know anything until then. The other, oh, thank you. Could you, let's go to the one screen. Okay. The Lost Wages Assistance Program was the next federal program that provided $300 a week from August 1st to September 5th for as long as the program remains federally funded. That again provided, that was for claims filed the week of July 26th through September 5th. To date, this program has paid $664 million for 2.2 million weekly benefits. And so again, that program only provides benefits through September 5th. And at this point, we don't have any continuing benefits under that act. Next slide, please. All right, so these were some of the changes that were implemented due to COVID and pandemic considerations. Job search requirements were suspended. They are still suspended. A waiting week was suspended. Standby and shared work programs were expanded to part-time workers. Of course, these are all, generally, the state changes have been, Governor Inslee has been announcing if the job searches have been suspended or waiting week has been suspended. Those are also on the ESD website. And any updates are also posted on the ESD website. Right now, we don't know, again, what'll happen after the new administration or same administration resumes work. Okay, I think that's, next slide, please. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Juliana. Just to share a little bit about Northwest Justice Project's work and our involvement in this issue, NJP provides legal assistance and representation to eligible low-income individuals and families needing help with non-criminal legal problems in Washington state. NJP operates the Clear Legal Hotline, and we have 18 offices throughout the state. We also maintain Washington Law Help, a public website containing an extensive library of legal resources and self-help materials, including do-it-yourself court forms in areas of law needed most by low-income people, the great majority of whom are forced to appear in court unrepresented. This slide here shows a special sort of subtopic we've got under the Washington Law Help webpage, dealing specifically with pressing legal issues related to the pandemic. Washington Law Help is a library of free articles, videos, court forms, and do-it-yourself packets covering many common legal issues such as the ones you see here: family law, public benefits, consumer and other debt problems. It's really quite extensive in the range of topics that are covered. Given the unprecedented need for unemployment benefits, NJP has joined ULP to offer legal assistance to low-income people who've been denied unemployment benefits, and that was how Brandy came into this work, as you heard a little earlier. Next slide. John or Juliana, is this was this your slide?
I can hop in here. I added the slides. So these are just some important contact numbers to keep in mind if you're having various issues, if you have general unemployment questions, are looking for assistance with your e-services. So that's the Secure Access Washington Help Desk. If you think that you're a victim of fraud, we have a number there for that. And if you're navigating overpayment issues, there's a phone number for that, as well as navigating the appeals process. All of these numbers can be found at esd.washington.gov.
Also, I would just like that, it's very hard to contact employment security, so it may take many calls to get through. If people cannot get through and need individual help, they can contact unemployment law project.
Great, thanks, John. Next slide. All right, looks like we're ready for the panel the panel discussion. And so maybe we could just start by Rod, Krista, and Brandy, each of you kind of giving a little bit of information about yourselves and describing your experience with this work and your involvement in unemployment issues today. Do you want to maybe Brandy and then Rod and then Krista?
Sure, that works. Once again, I'm Brandy Douglas, the Employment Benefits Navigator for the Native American Unit at Northwest Justice Project. I actually just came into this position at the beginning of September. Prior to that, I was really just a witness to a lot of the frustrations that my tribal community was experiencing. And a lot of that was exhibited on social media, strangely. So I was in my tribe's Facebook groups, watching people be extremely frustrated with the process, trying to understand how to file, why they were, being kicked off the website when they were trying to file. And then this opportunity came about for me to assist in this area. And I realized this is really a headache for a lot of people. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to assist folks. Thank you.
Rod, you're muted. I can see that you're trying to share.
Oh, okay. How's that?
That's great.
Okay. My name is Rod Johnson. I'm the Human Resource Specialist for the Quinault Indian Nation, where I am a tribal member. I have worked in human resources at Muckleshoot and Puyallup and at our casino resort, and then now here at the Nation. I got into this, the unemployment part of this, because when we got let go in March, I was off for like a month and a half or so, and they brought me back specifically to help our tribal fishermen with their unemployment, and because a lot of them don't know how to run a computer, don't have a phone, or just not able to do their own claims and set it all up and everything. So I've been helping with that for about 5 months now. So it's ongoing. So.
Thanks. Krista, do you want to weigh in here as well?
Oh, hi. My name's Krista Molly. I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm having technical difficulties on my desk, so I'm on my phone right now. But I'm the Training and Development Administrator for LIBC. And the video, when I try to start the video, it says the host doesn't allow it. So that's why you can't see me.
We should be able to take care of that. We'll confer with you after this question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been at LIBC for two years now. Just fully doing trainings like CPR, a lot of internal trainings, HR policies and procedures, sexual harassment. Mostly we're doing a lot of things that our HR department would normally do. And then when this COVID happened, I was asked to, I think I was only working from home for about 2 weeks, and then got called to come in to help when we first started laying off employees. And that was the first week of April. We laid off like 250 employees here at the Lummi Nation, in the Business Council, which is the administration office, the casino, and then all the other, like the gas stations, the golf course, things like that, all of our other businesses that we own. So I got called back in to help facilitate staff doing unemployment. And then mid-April, towards the end of April, the Natural Resources Department had asked me to help navigate with the fishermen's unemployment also. So literally my entire job shifted, and that's what I've been doing about 80% of the time since April is strictly just helping unemployment, resolve unemployment issues for staff. And then like with the fishermen, it's doing a lot of weekly claims because a lot of them don't have access to computers, or the phone lines are so busy they get frustrated calling. So I've been literally, this has just been my job since April.
I can believe it. Well, it sounds like that's been a big change. How much, for again to the same group, how are you staying informed about the continually changing Employment Security Department processes and updates? It seems like there are new developments all the time. How do you keep apprised of what's happening?
For me, I follow their Facebook page, and we have an attorney assigned to our Human Resources Department, and they notify us every time there's a change, when they notify our employees that were laid off and that are on unemployment. So we get notifications from our attorneys.
For me, it's going around and searching on local newspaper sites and that kind of thing, and getting direction from my manager, Raven Bryson. It's been a crazy time. I've been doing it since April too, so it's been interesting to say the least.
And just to add to that, for me, honestly, this is kind of funny, but I look forward to watching the Unemployment Law Project's weekly webinar, which I would encourage a lot of folks to tune into. Weekly, you're getting updates. I'm also paying attention to ESD's website. I believe I signed up for notifications via email if there were significant changes being made. Talking to colleagues, just trying to stay really invested in learning as much as I can from as many outlets as possible.
Thanks. Any tips from any additional pointers from John or Juliana about this question, keeping up to date with changes?
It's been a moving target since March. A lot of changes coming, and also trying to follow the political situation. You know, what's going to happen in Congress, what are they going to vote for? It's been very difficult because of these programs, these special programs. I don't know who comes up with these names, but they are specifically designed to be confusing. PUA, PUC, you know, it's like I get a headache, and I'm a lawyer doing this stuff. So it's good to kind of, you know, follow what's on the ESD website, get advice from people who might know, call Unemployment Law Project or NJP or others. But I think the important thing is to be very careful to not mix up the programs, but because sometimes if somebody is talking to me and they say, I have a PUA, a PUC claim, I'll say, is that the $600 or is that the, what is that? Is that the extension? And that can really help sort out what they're really talking about. There's been a lot of information on some Facebook sites of some support groups. A lot of that information is good, but some of it might not be accurate. So it's important to be careful about those sources.
Great. All right, this question is for each of you. What are the most common issues that individuals have contacted you about since the onset of COVID-19?
I can go first. The lack of being able to talk to somebody is the biggest issue, especially for people that don't have computer access. So there's been 3 of us assigned here at LUMI that have been offering those services to people to come in and do their weekly claims or file appeals. The fraud was a big deal here. I think we had about 200 of our staff members affected by the fraud that our HR department had to clear up. So that was a big issue. And I think most recently, the people are getting the payback repayment. They've been getting asked to do the repayment stuff. And for small things, like they didn't submit their identity information, their social security card or driver's license. So I've been doing a lot of that the last 2 or 3 weeks, just uploading those documents to their ESD accounts.
I would just add to that, we've heard all that, plus one of the main roles of our office is to represent people at hearings, and it's frustrating because people have been waiting for hearings for a long time. They are trying to catch up now, or more people are getting hearings, but that's been a big problem.
I think also is the actual physically getting their identification from them. A lot of them don't have anything but maybe their tribal ID. Their social security card got lost or whatever, and they never replaced it. So getting those identity documents has been a major hurdle for me.
I heard some of those same complaints where claimants were asked to submit their social security card or ID that, maybe they were missing their social security card and they couldn't get it through the Social Security Administration because they were shut down for a while. So there's just a lot of frustration. Some claimants would submit their information 2, 3, 4 times, and they would still get notification that they needed to submit it. So I think that's just all the concerns that everybody else has already voiced have been ongoing. Sometimes the claimants were asked to respond to information and their benefits were suspended because they didn't reply or they were denied, but they never got the questionnaire and never received anything in their portal asking them specifically what the ESD needed. So the questions, I think, again, there's just so many issues, and the biggest complaint that we saw was claimants not being able to get through to ESD. They tried, writing in their portal, and they tried calling ESD over and over again. I mean, we had claimants that called hundreds and hundreds of times a day, and then also tried to send messages and never got a response. So those are really the biggest issues that we saw. And it's continuing. The communication seems to be somewhat better with ESD, but there's still some issues with it.
Yeah, and just to add to those issues, for me, it's helping individuals interpret whatever ESD is trying to communicate to them, and trying to shed some light on being very cognizant of deadlines in terms of replying, because those turnaround times for replying are sometimes within just a few days, and by the time they reach out for assistance, they've passed the deadline for responding, or they didn't even know they had a message. So just trying to keep them cognizant of any correspondence coming and interpreting what that correspondence is saying to them or asking of them.
I should just mention that I received an email from Ann Paxton. She does a lot of the policy work for ULP, and she said that there's a new flyer or new information available on Washington Law Help on how to navigate applying for PUA. So that's available. It's presently available. I don't know how to share the link on here. Maybe Hunji, you can do that, but I'm not that tech savvy.
We'll try to get that into the chat. I'm wondering, so the next question is about, these issues have been rampant and they've left individuals feeling very frustrated and hopeless. What advice would you give someone who believes they may be a victim of fraud?
Well, there's a fraud report hotline with ESD. I've talked to many people who found emailing them or calling them and them not responsive. With a lot of the ESD problems, communication problems, it's just hard to get their individual attention to resolve things. So a couple things have worked. They don't always work. They sometimes work. So one is contacting your state senator and state representatives. Sometimes they can be responsive to internally contact ESD or the governor's office. Also contacting ULP, we can do what's called a constituent services letter to contact ESD to try to resolve an issue. It often works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, it doesn't necessarily solve all problems, but sometimes it can let us know or let you know what the problems are, because one of the issues with unemployment is always, and you could be denied for a number of reasons, or your claim might be stuck in adjudication. It's not really denied, or it's pending, or you're disqualified for one question you answered wrong or misunderstood, and that might hold up the whole thing. And with the inability to just call up an 800 number and have somebody respond immediately, where you could just talk it through and get it resolved, that's very, very hard to do. I'm going to put in the chat the website for the Washington legislature. And if you do either contact someone yourself or someone you're working with, it's probably good to contact more than one, of them, because it's hard to guess who might be more responsive. And there's a feature on the district that's Find Your District, and I've referred a lot of people to it. I've gotten feedback of some positive results, sometimes not. And also I've emailed some representatives on behalf of people, and that again has had some mixed results. But when people are just stranded, they just can't get through, all of these tools may be able to be helpful.
Thanks, John.
I've noticed that a lot of times the applicants, I call them, I guess, they had signed up for unemployment before, forgot all about it, and then when we go to build their new account, then it locks it into the other account because of their social security number, and it makes it real difficult to do anything. And I understand the frustration with trying to call, and I don't have the time to do it, so they have to do it, and they get really frustrated with that. So I would just say that they usually give you a number right away. Call that number as fast as you can and keep calling. That's all you can do at that point.
Rod and Krista, do you have any tips or information to give about people who work in the doing treaty fishing, and any particular problems that they run into in reporting their income or reporting their unemployment status as fishers?
Well, we're lucky here is that we have our Quinault Pride Seafood, and all the income flows through there, so I'm able to get their income for previous years. But the problem is when they start fishing again, which they have recently, then they forget to let me know how much income they made for the week, or so their claims get backed up, and they don't let me know. That I have to go try and find them sometimes. So as far as tips, I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but I'll think about it.
I have a question.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question for you, Rod. You mentioned that some of the claimants would have to submit their information, like their social security card and their tribal ID. So was there any issue ever with submitting a tribal ID as an identification?
It seems to work okay most of the time. Again, it's not, fail safe or anything, but they have been accepting that for but they don't accept the CIBs. They has to be the actual physical identification card with their photo on it. So that's another issue.
And the CIBs are the certificates of Indian blood.
Right, from our enrollment office, yeah.
Go ahead, Krista.
For me, I don't have any like tips or anything. We've been doing pretty much everything for the fishermen. Here we help them open their ESD accounts. We help them do their weekly claims. Once crabbing and shrimping opened up again and fishing now, it's kind of slowed down. And we haven't seen many of them since it opened. So I don't really know if they're still collecting it or if they're reporting properly, but we have a database system that we use here in our fisheries department that keeps all that income information for us. So it breaks it down quarterly also. So our in the ESD website under the self-employed section, it asks for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 income, and our database actually does that for us. So that made it really easy. And I was contacted by some other tribes to help with navigating the unemployment, and they didn't do those things. So I know other tribes weren't even able to apply for unemployment for their fishermen because they didn't have any record of how much income individuals were making. But yeah, I don't have any tips either. Just because we've been doing all of it for them because they're, most of them have been fishermen their whole life. So no real computer skills. Getting on the phone is frustrating. They don't generally want to call 100 times in a week just to get an answer or just to do a weekly claim or whatever. So we've been just doing just about all of it for them.
Yeah, I have too. So
Thanks for sharing that. I think we're going to move into the questions from our participants. I'm going to turn over to Therese to share the questions that are coming up from the audience.
Thank you so much. We have received a few questions both in the chat and the Q&A, and thank you everyone for posting your questions. Certainly, if you'd like to ask a question live, I think you can raise your hand and we'll see how to have you ask your question directly to the panelists. But for now, I'll just start with the questions that have already been submitted. I think this one is for you, Brandy, or any of the panelists. Can someone help an individual complete an unemployment insurance benefit application for someone else?
Oh, sorry, I was dealing with some difficulty getting my mic on. I believe there is a way to assist, but I'm not sure if there are some stipulations. I would defer to John in terms of what needs to happen so it's a question of whether, let's say I'm assisting, I guess I just need a reiteration of the question.
Is there someone that can help another person complete an unemployment insurance application, like some of the tribes have been discussing that they offer to their tribal members?
I feel like there are certain folks stepping into those positions. And so folks like Rod or Krista or myself here at NJP, and then of course ULP. So I suppose it's whatever avenue you're wanting to pursue, but I feel like that's definitely an option.
You know, we've had a lot of calls about that, about assistance, and my view on it is that it's fine to help somebody, you know, just like you would help somebody vote or do other things, but it's important to make sure that they are controlling the information, that, for example, when they set up their account with the password, that they should into a relationship where you have their password and they're telling you to, you're interacting with them and you're running their account, which can lead to a lot of problems and be pretty messy, you know. But assisting someone is fine. I think that there are people with barriers, significant barriers to the application process. And while ESD should be doing this themselves with an 800 number that people actually answer and can help on the phone, I think, you know, I've talked to a lot of people who've been helped by agencies, but I think it's important to have that proper professional relationship.
Yeah, for me, I been helping them set up their accounts, and we have a application that we use to have them supply the information that I need to get in there and set it up. The only problem when you call them is they want you, the person, to physically tell them that it's okay for me to talk to them or for them. So it's been interesting, like I said.
We also did that. We created an application with all the information that individuals would need to provide us to do the fill out the ESD account information, and put their username and password on the bottom of the application. Like the whole form was just specifically for coming in and getting unemployment help. And then because they have Social Security, give it to them again, that they needed to bring it back with them. Just for security reasons, I mean, personally, like we do lots of other trainings like HIPAA and FERPA and stuff. So keeping personal data is like a big no-no in our building. So, but yeah, no, we did the assistance part. We literally just gave them a form and said, keep it, take a picture of it, don't lose it, so that if you need help, you can bring it back and we can help you. And then we did get a lot of people that would call and say, well, you helped me, you should have it. So, which we don't keep any of that, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Any other responses to that question, or I'll move on to the next question. Okay, we have a question from Sydney Hill. Currently, there are not a lot of jobs available on or near the Yakima Reservation. I will be graduating from Heritage University with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a minor in psychology. Are 3 job searches per week being required at this time during COVID? And do I have to apply for minimum wage jobs if available?
For me, I just select no on that question of have you done a job search, and it's been working fine for me.
Since March 8th, they have suspended the job search requirement. It doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, you know, it's good to look for work if you're able. It's important to look for suitable work for you. You don't have to apply for any job. The rule says you must be, if you are searching for work, you should be searching for suitable work for you. So don't apply for things that are too far away, or, you know, wouldn't pay in your pay range, things like that. I think what's tricky right now to kind of keep in mind is that you don't have to do the job search, but you could be denied unemployment for turning down a job. And I know that's crazy. Like, why would you get cut off unemployment or have an unemployment problem for turning down a job when you didn't have to look for it in the first place? Well, when they change these rules or amend these rules or do a suspension of rules, they don't change all of them. So when people claim unemployment, there's that question, did you refuse any offers of work? And it's good to say no, because if you say yes, then they will question you about what it was and why you turn it down. If they find that, well, it wasn't a suitable job for you, it was outside of your skill range, it was too far away, it paid too little, things like that, that will be fine. But you can avoid kind of having to say that you turn things down by not even applying for those jobs in the first place. Although some employers will advertise a job at a certain pay range and then offer you a different job at another pay range. I know that happens. But right now, the job search is not required.
And I just want to echo that, because I know that every week during that webinar, John, you're emphasizing don't apply for the position that you're not willing to work. So if you do turn down that job, you know, it's only going to hurt you in the end. So just be cognizant of the no need to do weekly job searches, and only apply if you're willing to do that position or work that position.
There's a question in the chat about how long is the job search suspension going on. Originally, it was going to be August 1st, then it was September 1st, then October 1st, and now it's indefinite. It's sort of like suspended until further notice. If you're curious about that, or like worried about when it will be changed, if you go to the ESD website, which is esd.wa.gov, there's a at the top of the homepage, there's a alerts notice, and it sort of gives you current things. I actually haven't looked at it for the last week or so, but when these job search extensions were coming up, that was a good source. They would always wait until the last minute, by the way. We would find out, you know, end of, you know, very last week of August if they were going to change the rule back September 1st, but that's a good source.
Okay, we have just a couple other questions. What is standby and the shared work program?
I'll go ahead and answer this, and then John, you could maybe add if you want to. Standby was more, I guess you would consider it more of a temporary layoff. They waived the job search requirement because for that category of, well, or that, I guess that, for standby, again, they considered it temporary layoff, and so the employer generally planned to rehire, and so again, that was something that was supposed to be temporary. It did create a lot of issues for some of the claimants calling in, but I haven't seen any of those issues recently. The shared work program is a program where the employers would offer flexibility, maybe reduce the employers, or excuse me, employees' hours, and so that several employees would maybe be working in the position of one employee. John, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
That's all correct. And that shared work is something that the employer has to kind of sign up for and ask employers if they want to participate. Like, let's say if an employer has 5 employees and they have to have cutbacks, and normally they would let 1 or 2 people go, people can get partial unemployment and keep their jobs by working less hours, but it has to be the employer kind of on board with it. It's not something you can just say, hey, I'm filing for unemployment, I want shared work. Like if your employer laid you off permanently, that's not an option, you know. Standby has been very confusing this year because the standby rules have been around for a long time about suspending a job search requirement. And then it got confusing when they changed that for everybody. So it got confusing because people would say, I'm on standby or I'm applying for standby. And it really didn't matter if they were technically on standby or not, because the job search requirement was still thrown out. It created a lot of confusion, but basically standby is you don't have to search for work because it's a temporary layoff.
And just an addition there is that they actually ask for a specific date when you do click standby. So if you have a date, then you can do standby. But if you don't, just do regular. I wouldn't select standby at all.
Thank you for those answers. And just a reminder for our participants, if you do have any questions, you could either type them into the chat or raise your hand, and we can allow you to talk and ask your question to the panelists yourself. I have two more questions. We are slotted we can go until 1:30, but we'll wrap up if there are no other questions. For now, a question that we received, you somewhat have answered this already, but I'll go ahead and ask it again just to be sure that if there are any other comments the panelists would like to add. So if someone has a developmental disability, is there a way for them to have assistance by their caregiver? I assume that means in the application process or in claiming weekly benefits.
I have not had any experience with that situation, so I'm no help in this one.
I'll just say kind of what I said before, in that it's okay for people to help, but they should do it in a way that doesn't compromise, confidential information or take advantage of the person. Because there are cases that come up that somebody files for unemployment under somebody else's name or identity, and of course that's fraud, that's theft. But a caregiver who's looking out for their best interests and is protecting confidential information, I think that could be done. It's unfortunate. Employment Security should be providing this type of access, but it's, in theory they are, but in practice you can't get through for that type of assistance. If the person doesn't have a reliable caregiver or advocate who can work with them, maybe contacting a state legislature might get a call back from ESD, and maybe they could do what they should be doing.
And I haven't personally dealt with this either, but I know that ESD has a reasonable accommodation number. I'm not sure if that's the number that you're referring to, John. That's kind of, you can't reach anyone at, but it is on the ESD website. Like I said, I haven't utilized it yet, so I don't know how successful that is in navigating.
Thank you. One question we got was whether a copy of the slide presentation would be made available. After the webinar, we will try to get that posted to the Unemployment Law Project website, and I believe a recording of this webinar will also be posted to the Unemployment Law Project website. I'm not seeing any other questions, and I'm not seeing any other hands raised. I think I'll pass it back to you, Jen.
I was just going to add one more question, which is about the issue of overpayment notices. It's something that I think we've been seeing more of. So that the issue of overpayment notices arriving months after the individual's already received unemployment benefits adds to the struggle and the stress of trying to survive at this time. For the panelists, if someone receives an overpayment notice, what do you think their first move should be?
Well, I would say read the notice carefully, and it should say on an overpayment notice, you have a right to an appeal, and give instructions and you can file an appeal online through services, by fax, or by mail. You can do all three or more than one, just in case one gets lost or misdirected. An appeal letter does not have to be a long legal statement. It should just say, I received this notice on October 30th. for an overpayment of $5,000. I disagree with this overpayment. I want a hearing, name, address, phone number, social security number, follow those instructions and get that in. And then when you get a hearing, you can contact Unemployment Law Project, or even before if you wanted advice on it. But it's a very simple process. And there's a number of ways when you do get a hearing to have that overpayment taken care of. It could be found that you were actually eligible and there would be no overpayment, or maybe there could be a waiver due to hardship, or maybe the overpayment notice itself was flawed and should never have been sent, and some judges will throw it out. So there's a number of reasons to fight, but it's important not to wait and not to miss your deadline. But if you have missed your deadline, still they can allow good cause for a late appeal. So still file that appeal, even if it is late.
I've gotten some calls from claimants who, I don't know if it's because they haven't looked at the letter or because they were not aware that they got a letter. Sometimes, again, because of issues with ESD, the claimants don't get notification until they get a collection letter. And so some of the claimants that have called have collection letters. The payments are due in a couple days or a couple weeks. I advise them to file an appeal if they haven't already. And then also when that appeal is filed, to call the collection office and to let them know that they have an appeal pending. And so this matter is still in process, and see if they will go ahead and stay the collection action. So that's, I don't know if we put the number for the collections on the webpage or not, but that should be on the ESD site.
I'm glad you added that, because with so many people not getting the original notices for various reasons, whether they moved or it never got there in the mail, or it was in their e-services account buried somewhere, whatever reason they didn't get it. The problem is when you get the bills, it doesn't give you appeal instructions on the bills, because they've assumed it's a valid debt at that point. So you can contact our office and we can help with the contact information for mailing or faxing an appeal, or help guide a person to get through e-services to get to the appeal function. But it's important not to give up. I mean, I know it's very discouraging when people get these notices and they feel there's nothing they can do. I mean, and we don't win every case we take, but we win enough of them that it shows that it's worthwhile to fight, and worthwhile even if it is late. Some judges can be very understanding of those late situations and find that there was good cause for the late appeal, and that the overpayment was not valid for whatever reason.
Great. We have one other question from the chat. What is the expected wait time for someone who submitted identification verification and had their benefit payments stopped and filed an appeal?
Well, I don't know if we can answer that. John, maybe you have some comments. But, as I mentioned before, I've spoken with claimants, or our legal interns have spoken with claimants here who've submitted that information, 3-4 times, maybe more times. And so I don't really have an answer to that. I'm not sure what happens when things are sent to ESD, but I know that some claimants have, resubmitted it, and they're just, frustrated because it's, they're still getting a letter saying you need to submit this information. I don't know what the timeline is, if they actually get the information. Maybe one of the other panelists can answer this, or John, but I haven't seen any, I don't have an answer for that as to how long it takes to verify that information and to get it corrected. I just know that there have been ongoing issues with that.
Yes, it's been going on since March and May, when they did the ID check. And some people have waited months to get a hearing. Some can get them in a few weeks. It's very inconsistent. What ESD has done, which I was very unhappy to find out is that rather than put appeal requests over to the hearing office immediately, which was the normal procedure for many years, they held on to them thinking that, oh, we'll fix these since so many are just issues that need to be corrected. Well, thousands and thousands of claims just piled up before being sent over to the hearing office. And there have been various meetings with ESD and with the Office of Hearings, and more cases are being sent over now after all these months for the hearing process, while others are being resolved. I've talked to people who've had them resolved. So officially, I've heard that it might be 4 to 6 weeks now to get a hearing, but that's just an estimate. Because I know for some people it's been shorter, some people a lot longer. If you or somebody you know is in a position of just waiting and waiting, I would again use tools like contacting Unemployment Law Project, where we might be able to send a message and find out what's going on, or contact your state senator, state representative, or the governor's office. I could tell you a lot of anecdotal stories about things that have happened, and sometimes it's hard to tell whether something is just a coincidence or something actually worked. I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, a man told me, I've been waiting for my hearing on my overpayment for like 6, 7, 8 weeks. What's going on? I don't know. And I said, well, I'll take your information. I'll see what I can find out. But in the meantime, contact your state senators, state representatives. And he seemed, very capable and very, energetic and enthusiastic. And so before I could even take any steps, like 2 days later, he calls me back and says, all of my benefits have been released. I talked to somebody at Representative so-and-so's office, and they said they would help me, and all the money was in my account the very next day. And so his hearing request got turned into like a redetermined resolution. It got resolved because they looked at the hearing request and saw that it was something that really didn't need to go to a hearing that got resolved. Now, I don't really know whether that was just a coincidence or whether calling his representative really made the difference or not. I know, but things like that are going on, and sometimes people get things resolved quickly with some intervention, and others are still waiting for many weeks. So if a person is waiting for the hearing, you can call the Office of Hearings, the Office of Administrative Hearings in Spokane Valley, to find out if they've at least received the file from the hearing office, because the problem is the files haven't been sent over. So if they have the file in hand, even if it's not scheduled yet and will be scheduled in a few weeks, then at least it's on its way.
I just tell people that every case is different. So sometimes they go fast, sometimes they go slow. Just hit and miss. I try to do the best I can.
Definitely. I echo that, Rod, and I appreciate you sharing all those different avenues that you can take, John, because, having to tell someone, well, I don't have a date for you to expect this is going to be resolved. And then to try and convince them to just kind of hang on. It's really troubling.
A related follow-up question. Tribes are sovereign nations with their own government structures. Has anyone tried to communicate with their local tribal government, who would then maybe communicate with like the ESD tribal liaison or others at ESD? Anyone had experience utilizing your working with your own tribe to try to resolve problems at ESD? Maybe it's not something people have done yet.
I'm not aware that Lummi Nation has done any of that. I do get a lot of questions like from the treasurer's office about the unemployment, especially for the fishermen. But I don't, as far as I know, I'm not aware of them contacting anybody above, like at the state level, national level. If they did, they didn't tell me.
Yeah, I've been basically the sole contact for the fishermen, so they expect me to handle all that stuff.
All right, well, thank you all. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So I think we can move on to the next slide and start wrapping up. We just want to share our contact information for getting help with a problem related to unemployment benefits, or for Northwest Justice Project, more other related issues. So you'll see here the contact information for ULP's Spokane and Seattle offices. For the Northwest Justice Project, if you live outside of King County, you can contact the CLEAR hotline or apply online. And I believe, Teresa, if you're still here, maybe you could drop the online application link in the chat. And then also you can contact Brandy directly if you're a native and have a problem related to unemployment benefits. You can contact Brandy at the information posted here. Next slide. And this is information for Krista. Molly, Krista, thank you again so much for being with us today. And the next slide is Rod's information. Next slide, please. Thank you. And thank you all for attending. We're happy to get questions, and follow up as well. Any other final words from our panelists? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.